like 500 to 800 years to break down into little microplastic particles. It was like, wow. And just doing the numbers around all of that made us sort of feel like we had to try to offer an alternative. And this is, we started in 2010, so we're really the forefront of this sort of sustainable menstruation movement. And there were no other brands of cloth pad.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Monica.
It's lovely having you for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really happy to be here with you.
So, Kathy, tell me something about yourself. Why did you come to India? What inspired you to come to this beautiful land of spirituality, yoga, and much more?
Definitely spirituality was a pull. I'm from Australia, and I came here when I was 29, so about 27 years ago.
Wow.
I'd learned about Oroville, which is in Tamil Nadu, and it just really inspired me. It's a visionary community that's really founded on a vision for human unity and a really sort of embodied spirituality. And in the world, it's sort of, living a spiritual life, but in matter and not in an ashram. That really spoke to me. So it was really Oroville that pulled me here and has kept me here for the last 27 years.
Incredible. What do you think has been the biggest highlight of these 27 years?
Ooh, I think biggest is always a difficult one to catch, but I've had so many opportunities to kind of grow and explore myself, and Eco-Femme, to be able to create a project like this is certainly among the crowning highlights of this time here. But rather than an experience, I think it's really been the journey of co-creation of such a project that has really stood out for me in the last years. But in fact, it's also been part of many, many experiences of just learning what it means to live in community with others and, connecting to the earth and trying to live in a way that's more in harmony with the natural world. Yeah, I feel very fortunate to be here. I think just being here itself is already a highlight, and to be able to create a project that is making a difference is something that I feel very excited and happy and proud about.
So what inspired you to start Eco-Femme? And tell us, why did you choose this name, Eco-Femme?
It's a very personal journey. When I arrived here from Australia, it was really one of my first kind of confrontations with the challenge of dealing with my own sanitary waste. So I was living in a small community and I was asking, where do I put it? Where do I put this waste? And instead of being kind of, shown a bin, which is what I was expecting, I was given instead, we call them a mumpty, like a digging tool, to go and dig a hole. And someone casually pointed to the forest and said I could go and dig a hole over there. And I was like, wow, it was a real wake-up call to make me realize that dealing with sanitary waste was a problem, and it was going to be my problem to deal with my own. And of course, it was fairly visible all around me that waste is a problem in India. We don't have good solutions for solid waste management. So I was lucky enough to find a cloth pad when I was visiting my brother in New Zealand, just 1 or 2 years after I'd moved to India. And I just instinctively got that product and found that it had such a it was a really powerful experience for me to use the cloth pad, because it really gave me the opportunity to sort of interact with my menstrual blood through the process of washing it. And in that moment, I really understood the ways I'd been conditioned to sort of have an aversion to this blood and to menstruation. Then through the process of washing and drying and reuse it, I thought, wow, this is really interesting. It was like a doorway into something that was unconscious in me. But I found in doing that and taking care of this product and reusing it, it felt so liberating, because, obviously I was dealing then with the waste problem, but it was also that I could, just through this simple act of washing and reusing, I felt like I started to connect with my body and my menstrual process in a very new way. So that was also an attraction. So all of those things kind of got me interested in the cloth pad. And the name Eco-Femme, actually, to be honest, to start with, I just started to make them for the women in Oroville in my community, because I knew I wasn't the only one struggling with this problem. And I just chose the name Eco-Femme because it kind of fitted the two elements of something for the feminine and also ecology. So I just kind of, it just felt like a really fitting name for what I felt the product was really addressing. And it stuck. And in fact, those first 10 years were just very small scale, me doing the cloth pads for the community. And then gradually it morphed into what Eco-Femme is today.
Wow. Isn't it incredible? Just small, curious thought made you to create something like this, which is so good for environment.
No, absolutely. It was really organic, and that's why I say I was an accidental entrepreneur, because it just unfolded, and it was just suddenly there were all these pieces lining up. Like, so for what Eco-Femme is today, the shift came when I was working with another NGO and who were working with women, and they were looking for income generating activities for the women that they were supporting through educational initiatives and microfinance. And they had a tailoring unit. So it was really only in that moment where I thought, it would be really quite easy, I believe, to train these women how to stitch these cloth pads. And because up until that point, I hadn't been trying to really market the product or promote it. I didn't have a website or anything. It was just really a home baked thing, like a lemonade store. And I thought, well, maybe we could try to work with these women and help them to get the skills to stitch the products, and we could work on marketing and sales. So that was really how Eco-Femme, as it is today, got birthed. It was really this convergence. And as you rightly say, it was not really a big master plan of sitting down and thinking, oh, now I have to create this thing. It just sort of unfolded through life itself, and the different sort of winks and nudges that kind of showed up in my life, that it all aligned, that it fitted to do something like this.
Wow. It's so inspiring, right? How all of us have so much potential in us to lead from the front, especially women, right?
Yeah.
Women face so much of stereotypes, biases, but when we decide something, we really do it with our full heart, right?
Absolutely. It really was like that. There was this moment, I didn't know anything really about business. I had some background in nonprofit work, but it was absolutely a kind of unscripted development in my life. I didn't set out to do this, and I actually didn't think I had the confidence to do it either. It wasn't that I, thought I knew how to do it. I met my co-founder very early on, and, we really clicked. So there was a real synergy between the two of us, and we just kind of dreamed together and supported each other, and just to sort of, think it through. And, we had a lot of support around us. So I think it's, what I really believe happened for me was, I think this idea sort of landed in me, but the actual evolution of the project was so co-creative and really guided by life. I couldn't have made it all up myself. I'm not that smart. So it was really, it was really a beautiful unfolding of just really, in a way, following the breadcrumbs that life had sort of put before me, and taking a risk and jumping.
Wow, amazing. So tell us something about your entire operations. How do you do it? How do you, decide on the type of fabric that you have to use? How, because in this entire space, there are different requirements. Some have less flow, some have more flow, and some have medium flow. Based on that, how do you decide small, medium, XL, large XL sizes? What's this entire process? Try to educate our viewers so that they know that this is the product that they should be using and why they should.
Yeah, well, I think firstly, the main motivation for myself and my co-founder was both the environment. We really realized that sanitary waste was a big problem. And when we learned, for example, that sanitary napkins take like 500 to 800 years to break down into little microplastic particles, it was like, wow. And just doing the numbers around all of that made us sort of feel like we had to try to offer an alternative. And this is, we started in 2010, so we're really the forefront of this sort of sustainable menstruation movement. And there were no other brands of cloth pad in India. So we really had to figure it all out. We obviously knew what the product needed to do in terms of performance. It needed to have absorbent material. We felt that leak proofing was really important, because that would be a big factor in, assuring women that it wasn't going to leak. And, obviously no one really wants that experience. So, these things were fairly innate and obvious. And then in terms of sizing, I think that emerged a little bit more over time. We started with 2 or 3 sizes, and then over time we realized that we needed an even larger pad based on, customer feedback. We started really simple, I think just with 3 sizes, and And cotton, because where we're located in Tamil Nadu, it is a big cotton producing area. We wanted to also try to do as much as we could using sort of the principles of circular economy and local sourcing, and just really try to build as conscious a business as we could in terms of, yes, our sourcing practices, our hiring practices, our working with local women as tailors, to bring it as much of those ideals into the project as we could.
Wow, interesting. So tell me something about your future journey. What are you planning? What's in store? And how do you plan to reach to a larger audience to create a larger goal that is like more and more people should adopt this product. More and more women should adopt this product in their those crucial cycles.
Yes, I think first of all, maybe just to explain our model, because to be honest, when we started, we were really just sort of thinking of something kind of more commercial that would really be able to bring in revenues that we could sustain these women tailors. That was the initial vision. But we got very curious, and because we had the chance to sort of really probe and understand what the practices of, say, the local women in our neighbouring villages was concerning menstruation, this whole understanding kind of unfolded for us that there was a big taboo around menstruation, that it was as a result that it wasn't something that any young girl was really being properly prepared for. There was no real good quality education that was explaining to her what was happening to her and her body. A lot of anxiety and unnecessary fear around the onset of menstruation. So we felt there were big gaps in education, and we also realised that it wasn't just sort of more affluent women that, wanted or deserved to have access to such a product, but we wanted to really make it available to anybody who would be interested in such an alternative. And, we did a lot of research over the years, a lot of reading to understand, especially around rural and tribal communities, what their practices and beliefs concerning menstruation are. And over the years, we kind of formed a vision that was really based on the idea of enabling affordable access to cloth pads. But actually our bigger vision was really so environmental transformation, how we actually relate to the whole process of embodiment as women and girls, and how does that translate into our relationship with nature. We realised that the cloth pad actually was the sort of Trojan horse to this much bigger topic of how are we embodying our female bodies, and how does that either lead us to connection with the earth or disassociation from the earth. And certainly the use of disposable products by default distances us. We use it, we throw it, we try to get rid of it. Whereas with a cloth pad, you have to somehow handle your pad and therefore come in contact with your blood. And that experience I described before, that happened for me, we felt that the pad really opened up a doorway for conversation and for exploration of how comfortable we are in our bodies with these natural body processes, and understanding them as that menstrual cycle is a phenomenon of nature, just like all the other cycles in nature. So our work really morphed and expanded beyond just the pad was always the product, but in fact we saw our work as being much more about this, in a way, trying to write a new story around how we understand menstruation and positioning it and situating it in a belonging to nature, belonging to the natural world. And in that sense, we hope through our work to invite a kind of curiosity, at least, if not a real befriending of menstruation as something that's a really innate part of what happens to us, as women, and how we can, instead of, distancing ourselves, we can come closer and become more intimate with all of what our bodies do. So that it's a lot of words, but this was a bigger picture of what we were trying to do through our work. And we created a social enterprise model. So we have a for-profit and not-for-profit that enables us to also provide pads and education, menstrual health education, to women and girls who are from low-income backgrounds too. Our vision was that price wouldn't become an obstacle to anyone who would like to make the shift to a cloth pad.
Wow, this is now getting very interesting. You discover a cloth pad in New Zealand. You get it to India, you start exploring it, you start using the product yourself, and so much that shifts in you because you start understanding this entire menstruation from a very different angle. You connect more with your body, and you start honoring this entire process, because it, when we are using sanitary napkins, as you rightly said, disposable, so you have a very different thought process. Oh, it's not great, it's not good. But here, when you interact with this entire product, so it starts giving you a different kind of sense of liberation and freedom, and you start looking at this product from a different lens. And then you are now telling a very interesting piece, that you also thought this entire process or entire model to only creating a product. Why not create awareness? Because you would agree, as you rightly said also, that India, there is a lot of myth around menstruation, and there is a lot of fear also. So tell us something about your initial days when you started educating these females. What happened? Were there any challenges that you faced? Did they have any kind of biases and stereotypes around this product? So tell us something about that.
Yeah, we started doing like focus groups, with just to learn and understand how different women and girls would relate to the product. And the way we approached it is that we also, we'd have conversation just to learn from them about, what sort of practices they observed and things that they did or didn't do when they were menstruating, and how much, why they did those practices. So there was a lot of learning for us around that. And of course, we learned what I think, is probably well known to most people, that there are a lot of beliefs around, things that you shouldn't go into places of worship or kitchen, and this idea of pollution and purity associated with menstruation. This is very prevalent, and we keep understanding about that. And then what we did is that, because in the beginning we also didn't know how they would relate to something like a cloth pad. And it was really, again, going back nearly 15 years, it was at a time when also disposables were really entering the marketplace full force. And they were on TV, and everybody was being told, a modern, woman would only choose a sanitary napkin. Why would you even think of anything else? This was the promised liberation, right? And so what we did was we came with various products, including menstrual cups and cloth pads and disposable pads, which they knew, and cloth, and tampons. We just brought 4, 5, 6 products together, and we did like a show and tell session. So we weren't trying to convince them to use anything, but we were just curious to see what would happen if they would be exposed to these different products. How would they relate? And things like once they'd get in contact with the cloth pad, they were like, wow, first of all, they were struck that it was beautiful and that it was colourful. And that was interesting, because they were so used to, thinking of menstrual products as either deserving of the dirtiest, most old threadbare piece of cloth, or the white sanitary napkin. So this was, even the product, just looking at it, was subversive. And then when they understood that it had the same parameters of leak proofing and, wings to keep it in place, they understood how it performed better than, the cloth that they might have been using. And then when we talked about the sanitary waste issue, then all these stories would come out. Like they would talk about how, actually they're getting rashes and allergic reactions. That must be because of the plastic, and how difficult it was for them to also dispose properly, especially in rural areas. They'd also dig holes, and then dogs would sort of dig them up, and it was really a problem. So,
obviously,
the whole myth of convenience was also betrayed for what it is, actually. And so they were really excited about the cloth pads. And we've always taken the line, and even menstrual cups at that time, there was a lot of hesitancy about the internal insertion aspect. So we kept seeing a real enthusiasm to get their hands on these cloth pads. So it was really through that we thought we really must try to make these products available. And I think another part which was really interesting too, in terms of the education, like we realized early on that there was such a gap when it came to education. So we started developing curriculum and, starting our, for example, our Pad for Pad program in schools with girls. There's this idea around menstrual blood, which is so kind of burned into us. And this is across the world. It's not just India. But there's something scary about this blood that comes out of our bodies without any wound, without any trauma. And also because it's an experience that's happening to women's bodies and female bodies, there's a big misunderstanding around it. It's something kind of mysterious and really not well understood. So, it's sort of frightening, actually, I think, for a lot of people. And one thing we found that really made a big difference in terms of the education was really relating the menstrual cycle to the cycles of nature, and especially the lunar cycle. Because, first of all, of course, the timing echoes the lunar cycle. But in
Absolutely.
fact, as we started to unfold these ideas that menstruation is just one phase of a whole cycle, a monthly cycle, more or less monthly, that our bodies go through. And when we attend to and pay attention to those cycles, we ebb and we flow, we're not consistent all the time. And that's the same as nature, like the moon, the sun, the day and night, the months. Like we are living in a living universe that has cycles. And somehow through this approach, we could see that there were these big like aha moments happening inside, women and girls that would start to really think differently about this process and start to feel it was something special instead of something to be kind of just cleaned up and kept out of sight as much as possible. It just opened curiosity to these deeper currents of their own cyclical nature as beings and how we're not always consistent. So I found this was also a very powerful doorway into something that was quite transformational in terms of really our deeper worldview of inhabiting and accepting this female body that we're given.
Wow, it's amazing. You know, the way you have kind of related this entire thought with nature is beautiful. In fact, recently I also came across this very interesting forward where, they try to show the phases of moons. And then
Yes,
this, that's a beautiful, beautiful forward where they say, moon inspires me to look at life, my life as phases, and sun
yes,
inspires me to look at life from the lens of day and night.
yes, yes. Beautiful. Exactly. I mean, again, this is a maybe deeper aspect of our work, but it's very much at my heart is that we're living in a real ecological crisis. Like we all know that. And I've really come to believe that the more we can really inhabit cyclical awareness in any way, and of course the menstrual cycle is a wonderful portal for that, but anything that makes us come to understand that we live in cycles. Cycles are part of what it means to be nature and that we actually are nature. This, I think, is really almost the redemptive turn that we need in our whole culture to start living in harmony with nature and not just sort of trying to extract from it all the time as if its duty is just to provide for us. It's like if we do that to our bodies or we do it to the earth, we end up doing a great violence. Whereas if we start to say, take the menstrual cycle as a really, tangible example of becoming sensitive to the cycles that we experience. Not to say they'll always be easy. Sometimes we struggle a lot with these cycles, and premenstruation or, period pain and things. These are realities that many of us live with. But if we understand that they are part of this bigger cyclical phenomenon and we can accept it and be curious about it, I think it's going a long way in our deep psyches to really coming into a healthy relationship with life itself and living less at odds with the world and more, accepting of our own ebbs and flows and the ebbs and flows of life itself. And I think that's a really healthy way to live.
Wow, amazing. Isn't it incredible how just looking at life from a different lens actually
Absolutely.
makes us so much happier and joyful?
Totally. And that's it. I've become really fascinated in worldviews as a result of this work. Like all of what I'm saying now wasn't sort of fully blown in my mind when I started Eco-Femme. I was more or less thinking product and pollution, et cetera, et cetera. But over time, the layers deepened and deepened, and it's become, actually more of a big part of my spiritual journey has been to, claim and respect and honor and live in tune with these cycles. And that is, I think it is a deeply sort of spiritual perspective, but it is also one that makes us happy because we're living more in tune with life and not, at odds with it. We're not pushing against. Like if something's not flowing, rather than trying to batch on and make it flow, we can maybe take a breath and say, maybe it's not the right moment for that. So I think it's subversive. I really feel that our work ended up, for me, opening up many, many subversive layers into our sort of, consciousness.
Wow, brilliant. So tell me something about your challenges, the biggest challenges that you faced.
Well, I think early on the biggest challenge was the perception around cloth as being dirty and unhygienic and old-fashioned. And, it was sort of, maybe it was difficult timing because we came along this idea just when everybody was being told to use disposables. It's like, what? You want us to go back to cloth? It's like, get out of here sort of thing.
Yeah.
So we really had a lot of, pushback and resistance. But of course, I think with any innovations and people that could kind of see where we were coming from, there's always the early adopters. It's a no-brainer. It's like, of course, something that just makes sense. And gradually there was a momentum that builds. So we were very lucky. We also had a lot of media coverage. So things went very well in the beginning. Today, our challenges are quite different. I mean, I think the reality is that, for example, sustainable menstruation is a thing now. It's known and people talk about it, and nobody's thinking disposable pads are, completely benign products. We know while they may offer certain attractive advantages, that they also have a lot of disadvantages. So, we're at a different time. In 15 years, the ecosystem has changed a lot.
Yes.
What that also means is we have a lot of competition now. So in a way, we've been very effective. We've actually inspired others to emulate what we're doing. But the market is really now very much different. Even marketing is very different. So I think our biggest challenge as an enterprise now is actually sales, just sales and marketing, and figuring out how to stay relevant and stay, present. And as we're a social enterprise and we're trying to do our not-for-profit work on the basis of our commercial revenues, that's really taken a hit because since COVID, our commercial revenues have really gone down. And as a result, we've had to start really fundraising as well for our not-for-profit work. So, I think right now it's just some real, meaty business challenges is what we're really facing.
Okay. And what is inspiring you to stay true to yourself and, be at it and take this forward?
Well, I'll level with you. To be very honest, I'm actually in the process of handing over leadership. I've also in menopause myself, and I'm really feeling after 15 years, myself and my co-founder are really looking and building leadership in the team to take over. So this is a change that we're going through. I'm really, for myself, imagining a little bit more communing with nature going forward. It's been also a lot of work and it's demanded a lot, but it's been really a pleasure. So, I'm really looking at our team, our new generation of young women, also picking up more of the leadership in Eco-Femme. And I think that's more of that's sort of part of our future. And the other thing we'd love to do is actually more education along the lines of what I've been speaking about today. Deeper education. I think there's a lot of people doing menstrual hygiene education, and that's important. Obviously, hygiene is the first rung of the ladder that, we have to be able to have clean and healthy periods. But I think there's so much more we can gain from a holistic menstrual education that is something I'd really love us to explore and develop going forward.
Wow. So imagine, this is another transition that you're sharing from a space of owning everything, and now you are handing over your baby to another senior leader to take this forward, because that's all we learn from life. Create something and then make it so big that you're able to give it to someone who can inspire many more to take this forward.
Yes, absolutely. I love how you're really listening deeply, I feel, to what I'm saying, because it is big. And, it's been a deep journey to also realize that what Eco-Femme needs today is something different than what, myself and my co-founder could bring when we were founding. We brought vision and we brought direction. Today, it needs some really solid business acumen and we're also don't feel that we have that kind of energy and stamina needed to run the enterprise in the same way. So there's a real humility in recognizing it's also time to let go now and try
Absolutely.
to, ensure that it's handed over in a healthy way.
Wow, brilliant. So, what are the three tips that you would like to give to budding women entrepreneurs who would like to create something like you, like a social enterprise? So, what are the three powerful
Mm.
lessons?
I mean, for me at least, having a co-founder was everything. Having a partner, having somebody who could be a sounding board, and also building as much as possible, even a wider circle of friends and allies that could help. I think this really is a feminine way too. Like, we don't have to be lone wolves in this, and use our friends, our allies, our husbands, wives, partners, like use anybody, but don't feel we have to do it all alone. I think that was really important learning for me. There's too much for one person to also fully understand and carry, so use your allies. I guess I would also, just really say make time for self-care as well, because these things can suck you up completely. And I think having some sort of practices that ground us and help us to sort of also not take ourselves and it so very seriously and heavy, because it can get really kind of like heavy when you're kind of really trying to launch and carry something. So definitely self-care would be another point. Um, I guess what I've learned through Eco-Femme and really had to learn to inhabit is cyclical awareness. And so that's sort of my Eco-Femme learning that I would bring into the sort of to the question of recognize that there are seasons for everything, and to try to read the tea leaves and understand which season that you're in. And if it's not flowing, maybe it just needs more time, and to sort of try to trust life and its cyclical intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I'm amazed how you are kind of picking up stories from your own journey and building a connect with deeper consciousness and kind of motivate us and inspire us to kind of look at life from a different lens. Thank you so much, Kathy. It's incredible the way you are sharing this entire story of yours and the greater purpose that you have in mind, and how you would like everyone to embrace this. It's beautiful. The entire
Mm.
thought is beautiful, and how you have created this entire industry of cloth pads, and how you have inspired so many to look at sustainability from a different lens. I think
Mm.
it's incredible. I'm amazed how a single thought has kind of become so big and it has empowered so many.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Well, thank you for your really generous words. And I'm amazed too, to be honest. Sometimes I also pinch myself because it just really came from such a small little seed, but that's how things grow. And I've really enjoyed our conversation, Monica. You've just listened so generously and so reflectively. So it's really brought out my story in a way that I'm really happy that I could share all these things with you today. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Now comes the last and very interesting part. So, I'll share some
Yeah.
words, and you will have to give, opposites of this
Yeah.
word,
Yeah.
and that has to kind of relate to you as a person and what do you feel about it. So here we go.
Mm.
Freedom.
Joy. Yeah.
Okay.
Aliveness, I think would be my word. Yeah.
Okay. And reflection,
So, life, the
love,
mirror of life. Yeah.
life, Life?
Life is a mirror. Life is mirror.
Inspiration?
Women.
Okay. You?
Me. Um, um, home. Home. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I
Mm,
loved having this conversation.
me too. Me
We
too. It's been really special. Thank you so much too,
thank you,
Monica.
thank you so
Okay.
much.